Okay, great. I think we're all set. I think I've cleared everyone out of the waiting room. So, Brian, why don't you take it away?
All
Let
right.
me know if you need any help with screen sharing or anything of that
Sure
sort.
thing. Let me just see if I can get that up. And okay, looks like we're good to go. Everybody can see that?
Perfect.
Okay,
Perfect.
great. All right, so thanks, Chris, and a good Monday evening to all of you, and safe comfort from the snow event we have going on out there right now. Pleased to be here tonight to get to know you all as an organization. I think that was a great intro, Chris, and vice versa. So I'm also joined tonight by Heidi Mitter, who has already introduced herself as the current multimodal planning manager at VDOT Nova District and formerly the bike ped coordinator. As a transportation planner, we have some common goals to improve safety and mobility in a region that is largely dominated by suburban sprawl, which is no easy feat, but we do the best we can. So I'll focus my presentation primarily on about my position as the bike ped coordinator and what I do, as well as what VDOT's role is in planning and promoting and implementing safety improvements. So, give the overview of the VDOT's bike ped program, as well as talk about some of the multimodal studies that VDOT does. And I'll go into some safety improvements, as well as some initiatives that the Transportation Planning Board does, the TPB being our regional metropolitan planning organization for the National Capital Region, of which Northern Virginia is a part. And then I'll throw out some opportunities in ways that you can engage with VDOT. First, a little bit about me. So I'm originally from New Jersey and lived there for about 30 years or so before moving to Virginia 2.5 years ago, first in the Fairfax Circle area on Blake Lane. But now I live in Reston. So I have a bachelor's degree in urban studies from the University of Pittsburgh, which I was mostly used as a stepping stone to a Master of City and Regional Planning degree from Rutgers, with a concentration in transportation. And originally I went into grad school kind of, with an interest in congestion reduction, getting people from point A to point B as efficiently as possible. But grad school kind of shaped me up pretty quickly on what really is most important, which is equity, safety, land use, multimodal planning, air quality, all those good things. So now my evolved interest is more in the bike ped realm and multimodal planning in general. But when I worked for 5 years at New Jersey Department of Transportation right out of grad school, that was more kind of as an MPO oversight, Metropolitan Planning Organization. New Jersey has 3 of them. So I was kind of involved in their oversight and kind of setting up their funding agreements for how they can function. But then when I moved to Virginia, I took a job as the transportation planner for the city of Manassas. And that's really where I got really exposed to what local transportation planning does, implementing bike ped projects from the transportation master plan, engaging with locality staff from around the region. That's how I met Heidi the first time. And then about 10 months ago, I moved to VDOT and am now kind of taking. There was a lot of variety with the job in Manassas, but this one is much more specialized, primarily in the bike ped realm. But I also do some park and ride coordination as well. And just wanted to give a brief overview of the Nova District, which takes up approximately 3% of Virginia's land area, but in that 3% houses 37% of Virginia's population. And it also houses 40% of the jobs in the state, with some of those workers coming in from DC and Maryland as well. So because the district is very small, but it's got a lot going on. So I work with a lot of agencies, a lot of citizens and advocates throughout the region, not just in Fairfax County, but also in Loudoun, Prince William, Arlington, and some of the independent cities like Fairfax and Manassas. So I bring some unique perspective working with all of those various stakeholders. So the bike ped coordinator at VDOT primarily serves as a point of contact with their internal VDOT staff, members of the public, advocates such as yourselves, locality staff, transit agencies, and the like. And there is a coordinator in each district, plus a statewide coordinator in central office. That's David Cook. There's also a state trails office that is responsible for state trails planning. And bike ped coordinator, we try to ensure consistency with CTB's 2004 policy, which provides the framework through which VDOT will accommodate bicyclists and pedestrians in all facets of the project development process, as well as during operations and maintenance activities. Now, projects will usually start the scoping phase with the presumption that all VDOT construction projects will include bike ped accommodations. We also review planning documents such as comprehensive plans, STAR studies, and project pipeline studies, as well as other internal and external plans. We also monitor safety trends. We conduct trail counts. We also help coordinate the update of the bike ped network as it grows with central office. We also keep up on the latest guidance and research from FHWA. And we also participate in some trainings and conferences related to bike ped matters. We also review design plans to ensure connectivity and application of best practices, as well as looking at comfort and accessibility, visibility, and good curbing design, and incorporate them into design plans. So this isn't really fully comprehensive of everything that I do in the bike ped coordinator role, but here are just some brief examples. We do work with TPB, the MPO for the region, and some of their staff help us conduct active transportation counts. Usually this happens twice annually in the spring and fall. And we recently finished some on US Bike Route 1 in Prince William County. But just this past fall, we decided to do some counts on the 495 screen line. So this is from roughly around Gallows Road on down to the Woodrow Wilson Bridge to try and get a sense of what the active transportation's demand is crossing 495 between inside and outside of the Beltway. We also conduct some design plan and local plan reviews. So we'll coordinate those plans initiatives in the region and stay top of best practices. For example, today I just reviewed the design plans for the Soapstone Connector project, and we also are continuing our review of the active Fairfax plan. We also participate regional and statewide committee meetings, such as those from the TPB, the DMV Pedestrian Safety Task Force, and VDOT also has a statewide bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee that shares best practices from around the state. But because NOVA has a pretty high share of bike ped network, and we have a lot of activity up here, so we have a pretty big presence at those meetings. And they meet quarterly. So their next meeting is next Tuesday, and it's open to the public. So if anybody wants to attend that meeting, I can, just get in touch with me, and I'll get you in contact with David Cook on that, since he runs those. We also attend VDOT public meetings, particularly those that have more significant bike ped elements, such as the Soapstone Connector project. And we also respond to internal and external inquiries, including from advocacy groups such as yourselves. And VDOT, and sometimes our sister agency, the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment, will conduct a variety of transportation studies each year, including STARS, Project Pipeline, and other studies to include roadway safety assessments, similar to the Blake Lane study. And these studies will typically look at a corridor in Northern Virginia and analyze multimodal needs and propose improvements, usually related to safety, congestion, multimodal connectivity. And these studies work with the localities as well as various subject matter experts, and also includes a public involvement phase. And the studies often have a goal of producing recommendations which will result in applications for funding and implementation. So, for example, we've had about 14 STAR studies completed in NOVA since 2018, and 4 of them currently underway. And speaking of applications for funding, it's typically up to the localities to prioritize recommendations and move towards funding applications and project development. And there are various funding sources that are needed to fund recommendations. They could be local, state, federal, or even other sources. But the main state process for funding transportation projects is SMART Scale. And this is a multidisciplinary approach used to prioritize projects based on performance in several categories. And these include congestion reduction, safety, land use, but there's even a couple more beyond that. And here's just one example of a STAR study that was recently completed along Little River Turnpike around the Annandale area, going between 495 and 395. So you can see the improvements that came out of the study listed here. And again, it is up to Fairfax County to apply for funding for these improvements, should they choose to. So I'll just briefly touch on some of the safety plans and resources that VDOT does. Virginia has a multi-agency strategic highway safety plan, as well as a vulnerable road user assessment that builds off of the strategic highway safety plan. And both of these have certain recommendations or focus areas that the state uses as a resource for safety improvements or policies. And the PBSAP is a plan document that has a great online interactive map, of which a screenshot is provided on the right here. And it provides safety priority corridors where we can see crash data, as well as corridors that have been analyzed for safety needs. It's currently on version 4, so the data does get updated periodically by central office. And localities can use this as a resource to support funding applications, particularly if a project is located along one of the identified priority safety corridors. So next I want to talk about the state's Highway Safety Improvement Program, which is a federal funding program that is delegated to the states. Virginia has decided to use this money to implement several systemic safety initiatives that achieve a high safety improvement for the investment provided. But I'll just focus on 2 of these safety initiatives tonight. These are pedestrian crossing improvements at both signalized and unsignalized intersections. Since 2020, over 460 of these pedestrian crossing improvements have been implemented across the district, mostly on the signalized intersections. Locations for improvements are selected by VDOT based on high priority pedestrian and bike safety corridors from the PBSAP, which I just mentioned, and specific treatments that you see here, such as curb ramps, new or enhanced crosswalks, signage, pedestrian signals, and push buttons. They're determined on a case-by-case basis. But the good thing is that these can be implemented much more quickly than capital projects, as there is much less time needed to scope and design each project. And localities can apply for HSIP money through the Smart Portal website on top of what VDOT already does. And the graphic here is kind of self-explanatory. It's for signalized intersection improvements that have occurred over the last 3 years. You can see there was kind of a flurry of activity in the spring of 2023, but there's also been some pretty robust activity in 2024. So it's good to see those pedestrian crossings being implemented. Now, these graphics here illustrate the locations of the improvements I was just talking about. The data is as of fall 2024, so new intersections may have already been completed since these came out. And I don't have the numbers specifically for Fairfax County, but visually you can see the dispersion around there. You notice that some intersection improvements were done along Richmond Highway, along Route 7 near the Bailey's Crossroads area, as well as along, I believe that's Lee Highway, and then Route 50 in Chantilly. And VDOT now has a new policy to require more crosswalks or pedestrian safety features at signalized intersections. But this will occur primarily during future signal alteration activities and could include signal timing or signal heads, crosswalk markings, actuation, and the like. Now I'll talk about some of the initiatives that the Transportation Planning Board does. They have a safety subcommittee where they share some presentations and best practices for transportation safety, and often these will be focused on bike ped initiatives. They also recently held a safety summit, which outlined some recommendations for future consideration. The TPB Bike Ped Subcommittee helps plan the National Capital Trail Network to promote a regional all ages and abilities bike and pedestrian network. And they also share best practices on bike ped initiatives and safety, similar to the Safety Subcommittee. But the Bike Ped Subcommittee also houses the Street Smart campaign, which is a creative regional marketing campaign which works with local law enforcement, transit agencies, and local and state transportation staff with an aim at reducing pedestrian and bicyclist injuries and deaths in the region. This is funded by Virginia, Maryland, DC, and Metro. And they recently just came out with a new creative just this past fall with the slogan, "Slow Down, Life Ahead." So now here are some opportunities for engaging with VDOT. Public information meetings and public hearings provide some of the best opportunities for public comment. And this can be done via project-specific meetings, also the VDOT 6-year program meeting, which is largely about what projects will be funded over the next 6 years. This meeting is usually held in the spring before the program is adopted, and it provides an opportunity for the public to provide feedback on projects that will be adopted into the program. There is also a joint transportation meeting that is held annually in conjunction with other agencies such as MVTA, MVTC, and DRPT, among others. And this meeting provides another opportunity for the public to provide general feedback to each agency, as well as to educate the public on some of the efforts that each agency is undertaking. And I mentioned before about the BPAC quarterly meetings, which is another opportunity for the public to see what's going on around the state in terms of bike ped efforts. And you could also contact me, the district bike ped coordinator, for any planning or policy items and any concerns that you may have. I can also coordinate those with the project managers or try to get the right staff member to hear those inquiries. And also, finally, the VDOT webpage. Our main VDOT website will house a lot of the project web pages and study web pages, so you can find the details on those items. And if you have any maintenance requests, the best place to do that is to input it into the My VDOT portal. And that's all I had. So I appreciate the opportunity to present and share some of the work that we do in terms of bike ped and safety, and happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thanks so much, Brian. We really appreciate you doing that. And I also appreciate you being willing to take some questions from the group. So if folks would like to ask Brian a question, go ahead and maybe try and put your hand up if you can figure out how to do that in Zoom. I'm gonna start off, I guess, and take the first one, and then we can let others jump in. So I know you have sort of a a larger time scale sort of planning mission, as it seems to be as your position. And I know you said you might not be able to answer projects about specifics about projects, certain projects. But I guess one thing I think that we would like to ask you about is, I'll just be frank. We sometimes get frustrated with VDOT, and it's not because you aren't nice people and don't have, the public's best interest in heart. But I think we sort of see there's sort of like bureaucratic inertia as maybe a nice way to say it, to some of the changes we would like to see implemented. The timelines for VDOT projects often are, many years. And so we've struggled over the last few years to try and see a path towards, so actually something Mike was talking about in terms of legislation, sort of quick build projects or interim projects. I can think of one example in my neighborhood near the Vienna metro station. There's an interim project in place that VDOT put together for a cycle track where they actually put up plastic bollards and temporary bus stops. And, that's been fabulous. And it's going to serve a certain purpose for several more years until, VDOT actually does the capital work and pours concrete and makes that project permanent. But we see very little of that sort of quick build interim projects, bollards, physical bike lane separation, even use of paint and other materials that would seem to us to be fairly straightforward, simple, inexpensive, also allows you to sort of evaluate the effectiveness before you put in larger dollars. So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts you could share about how we could make progress on that front with VDOT projects.
And let's say I don't really have a great answer to that question. That's why the best opportunity for quick build projects are the HSIP projects, because they are much smaller in scope. But for some of the bigger projects, as a planner, I do know that every state DOT has a similar project development process, which involves extensive planning, acquisition of funding, several levels of design and public involvement. If you get into utilities and right away, that can take a while, and that's before you get to construction and operation. So for some of the capital projects, sometimes there are certain stipulations that we have to follow, especially if there's federal funding on a project. But as far as some of the more quick build opportunities, as you mentioned, we have a new House bill that came out, and we actually just held an initial meeting. We got some stakeholders together from around the region on that, and we held our initial meeting on that just before the winter holiday. But we haven't really gotten into any details or anything like that. But that is something that we are looking at the moment. As far as how the Vienna Metro project got built, Heidi has a lot more insight into how that project came about, and how they were able to implement the interim solution before the long-term solution came about. But as far as that's
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mike, why don't you go next? I'll try and keep track of the order that people are raising hands.
Actually,
Sorry
Jamie was ahead of me.
Okay, go ahead, Jamie.
Hi, I wanted to ask, so I and some of my neighbors spent most of the last 4 years trying to get traffic calming on our street. And the only thing that VDOT would let us do was to use the RTAP program to do it. And when you talk about equity, this is a program that is rife with inequity. It uses a voting requirement where we're literally voting whether or not to get increased safety after a traffic study has said that vehicles are traveling at a speed that will kill us if they hit us. And the voting requirement requires a yes vote. If you don't vote or you're not interested, it counts as a no vote. And VDOT and FCDOT make exaggerated voting areas where hundreds of residences are required to opt in, and this is all for safety. And I'm wondering how we're supposed to take seriously the idea that anyone is actually interested in our safety when they set up these roadblocks, and what we can do to bring this program into something that is actually fair, that doesn't require just a neighborhood to spend gross amounts of time and gross amounts of money to try to do what you're saying is important to you in the first place.
Well, I will say that VDOT is very much interested in ensuring that safety measures are being implemented across all facets. I can't really speak to what voting districts are put in by either VDOT or the locality. But I guess the one thing I could say is that usually for any improvements, whether it's projects, or plans, or usually all of that is done at the locality level. So even though VDOT owns most of the roadways, a lot of the improvements are initiated by the locality. So I guess in this case would be Fairfax County. But as for any specifics on the process, I guess I could reach out to one of our traffic engineering or operations teams for that. Again, in planning, I'm kind of at a higher level, but I can relay any concerns you have to the respective project disciplines and or project managers.
Okay, I would really appreciate that because we've really run into nobody is interested in changing the program in a way that makes it equitable. It is so rife with inequity. It's disgusting.
And I'll just add that RTAP is a Fairfax County program. So, we hear you on that, but maybe Sandy or somebody else from Fairfax County could, respond to those better.
Yeah, I think that, thanks Heidi and Brian. I think we would like to connect with you separately about that, because I understand what Heidi's saying, but it's also our understanding that the county's RTAP program operates within boundaries set by VDOT and can't go beyond those. And so we would like to have a conversation with folks about how we think that program could be improved. So maybe we can connect with you outside this meeting and see if we could talk with whomever at VDOT that would be, that might know about sort of the construct of that program. That would be great. Thanks, Jamie. Mike, did you put your hand down?
Inadvertently, if I did.
Okay, go ahead.
So first of all, Brian, thank you, and thanks Heidi for being here tonight. I assume we're going to get a copy, or can we get a copy of your presentation? There were some slides here I thought were very useful. Yes, okay, thank you. Second quick question, then I have something more substantive. But the quick build meeting that was held before the holidays, who organized that? Do you know?
So that was organized by our traffic engineering group. So
Okay.
and then I'm an advisor to that as well.
Okay.
But really the PM is in traffic engineering.
So I got a call about 15 minutes before that meeting from Kathy Tran's office saying, did you get an invite? I said, no. So could you ask your traffic people to put us on their list when they have things like that so we could participate in these meetings? We think the quick build is a very important instrument that could help to improve safety. But I understand VDOT's big and they don't know we exist. Could you help on that? What's happened with the pedestrian safety task force that is part of a VDOT, but we had a meeting about a year ago and I'm not aware of any other meetings. Do you know what's the status of that is? It's a nice name.
Yeah, is this the one that Dwight Jenkins runs from DMV?
No, I think it's somebody else. There was, we had a number of people from VDOT, including um, the head of, uh, a couple of very senior people. And that were on a Zoom call. We had lots of different functions, people involved, and there was supposed to be a follow-up. Nothing's happened. And I met one of your senior administrators, and he was head of the pedestrian of some sort. And I said, "What's happened?" He said, "Oh, we meant to do something on that. We should do that." That was 6 months ago. So
Hmm.
it's a nice name. It would be great and there were a lot of discussions, and there was supposed to be some further discussions about specific inputs from people, and then nothing's happened.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that at all. Heidi, are you familiar with this task force at all?
So, well, I know there was a Northern Virginia meeting. It was either a FAB meeting or something related to that that was organized by advocates that I know VDOT Nova staff executives participated on. I don't think it was maybe that what you're referencing, Mike, because
No,
that was kind of a
no,
presentation to advocates. It may have been the statewide
it
a
was.
meeting related to the vulnerable road user safety assessment. I don't know of any task force that was started. So we have the DMV Pedestrian Safety Task Force that is run by DMV, has quarterly meetings, you attend those. But I don't know of any other task force that was set up. There was the vulnerable road user safety assessment meetings that focused on bicyclists and pedestrian safety that were hosted by our central office, traffic operations, safety operations staff, Stephen Reed.
That's it, Stephen Reed,
Yeah.
and so nothing is. So we just raised the question. It was great. It had a lot of energy and a lot of opportunity to do things, follow up. Boom, nothing's happened. Why not?
That was related, to my knowledge, to the vulnerable road user safety assessment that was completed. So I don't recall it being an ongoing thing, but I don't recall also what was said. So it may be referenced in the vulnerable road user safety assessment that's online. So that might be the best source for
No,
what the
whoever was
goals
the
are.
head of that realized that he was going to do something, and he had,
Mm,
as a gentleman, I thought it was Reed. But the one of the lobbyists that there were a lot of people in that.
yeah.
And your person who does the frontline lobbyist down in Richmond for transportation, she was part of it.
hmm
I forget.
hmm
Sorry. All
Maybe
right.
Joanne Maxwell.
Yes, that's it. Joanne. She was part of
Yeah.
that. Thank you. Uh, okay. Well, the HSIP is an important tool. We'd like to understand that more because there are places besides Blake Lane. There's a Latson Lane down in Richmond Highway South. There's a lot of places where we could perhaps do some quick build issues on that. So we look forward to learning more about that, Brian, from you. Thank you.
I think Douglas, you've got your hand up, and then there's also a question in the chat. Maybe we can move to after that. But go ahead.
Yeah, so Brian, you had mentioned, I think, doing active transportation counts in the 495 corridor between Gallows and the Wilson Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Is that tied to the 495 hot lane South Side project at all?
No, that's completely separate. So every 5 years or so, we've conducted these counts before. So every 5 years, we just go back and see some trends over time to see if demand has increased or decreased, just to assess the active transportation demand there. And it's not just 495, but we have some other locations, like we've collected counts along the W&OD. I also mentioned US Bike Route 1 in Prince William County. And in the future, we may even expand it to, as the bike ped network continues to grow, to expand it to some of the localities that have continued to expand it. But no, this is a technical assistance that we received from TPB. to do those. So,
Well,
but it's not a
I
conjunction.
I guess my question was sort of a suggestion, because if they are going forward with this hot lanes project and they're not thoughtfully wrapping in active transportation improvements, that would be a huge missed opportunity. And I would hope that the data you're collecting would inform what's being recommended and what might get wrapped into that concession.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to any plan reviews, or when we're advocating for internally at VDOT some of those best practices. So if that were to come across our desk, then that is something that we could point to, like, hey, here's the data. Bicyclists and pedestrians are using this corridor. Try to make sure that any improvements that are done are accommodating their needs as well.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Douglas. I don't know, Heidi or Brian, if you can see the question in the chat. If not, I can read it to you. But Spencer asked a question about star studies. Can you guys see that okay?
Chris, I can hardly hear you.
Sorry, I moved my mic. I was asking Heidi and Brian if they could see the question in the chat. If not, I can read it out loud.
We can read it, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, Heidi, I'll pitch that one to you.
Okay, can you walk us through the process for STAR studies that have concluded but the recommendations have not been implemented or funded? How are these prioritized and funded? Good question. So yes, as Brian described, VDOT conducts studies and then has recommendations at the end of the study. Those recommendations are crafted in coordination with the locality that study takes place in. When that concludes, usually the locality has been a part of that process and been a part of crafting those recommendations. And there is the assumption and kind of agreement that once it's done, though, and those are kind of agreed to, that the locality will take those and assess them and then prioritize them internally. So especially a county like Fairfax, there are a ton of recommendations for improvements in the county and a ton of requests for projects. So typically every locality will go through their own prioritization process, often in coordination with their board members, elected officials, other advisory groups, to see which projects are the highest priority for that locality. And then they will usually have a list and then apply for funding through various funding programs for that. So some projects or recommendations will fit more with certain funding types or applications. So smart scale, as Brian described, is kind of the big kahuna, as we say, for lots of funding. You can apply for projects that are very expensive or less expensive, but usually the locality will come up with kind of a basic design concept and then submit that application. There's a fair bit of effort involved with submitting a smart scale application, and that occurs every 2 years. It's a 2-year cycle. There's also other funding programs like Transportation Alternatives, or TA, which is typically aimed at smaller projects, a couple of $1 million to build a sidewalk or a trail or things like that. So if it's a smaller project, then a locality might apply for funding through other funding avenues like TA or revenue sharing. So it's really up to the county to prioritize based on county needs and priorities.
Thanks. Spencer, do you have a follow-up or any other questions about that?
Yeah, thanks, Heidi. That was much appreciated. So it sounds like the impetus is on the county to move forward with those recommendations and how they prioritize that. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Chris, I think you and I can chat offline later about that then.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. That we'd be happy to help you try and if you have specific things that you feel should be moving forward and are not, we're happy to talk with you about that. Anybody else have any questions for Brian or Heidi? I have one question that's a little bit down in the weeds, Brian, if you don't mind. There was a slide that you put up that you went by. I jotted, I think it was slide 13. I don't know, you don't necessarily need to reshare it, but it was something about changes to the way VDOT will implement pedestrian crossings at signalized intersections. Could you recap that a little bit? I was just interested in that. I have
Yes.
a lot of traffic signals in my area that have crossings on 2 or maybe 3 legs, but not all 4 legs of the intersection. And it seemed like you were discussing something that might change in the future.
Yeah, so this is, so it's a new informational and instructional memo that came out from central office, but it doesn't apply retroactively to existing intersections. It's only for future projects, and if there are any signal alteration activities that are going to occur, then they would be applied there. But there are, as you point out, there are a lot of intersections out there that are missing, those extra legs. But yeah, it would only be through, in order to prioritize them, would be through those kinds of activities. So future projects and signal alteration activities.
Okay.
I'll just
Thanks for-
add, Brian, that it can apply to existing intersections, but only if there's signal modification work being done at those. So it'll apply to both brand new intersections as well as if there's a project being done on an existing intersection, it can be improved.
Okay, so it's not sort of not a result of a recent legislative change or anything. It's just an internal VDOT policy that's being changed to apply to. Okay, thank you. Susan, yeah, go ahead.
In discussing this process, I hear a lot of handoffs from one organization to another. Is this process documented? Because it seems very not clear cut. So is it documented in writing somewhere?
Yes, it is. We have various agreements with the localities, and part of the process, yes, that is documented between the VDOT and the locality.
I
So
guess I would, which process?
Yes.
Is it available for public consumption? The process?
Heidi?
Brian, maybe I'll add. So we've discussed a lot of processes. Do you have a question on a specific process, like studies or project development or HSIP or funding?
Well, in general, all the processes, but specifically, when a project is starting, how early does your group get involved? Are you involved at the outset in planning a major road project, or do you come in later?
So yeah, we are involved the whole way through. So we review localities like local plans, and then when projects come in through the scoping phase, we're involved at that point, and also through the project development process, through all the design reviews, we also comment on those projects as well when they come up.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Susan.
Thank
you.
Okay, anything else?
Chris, I have just one general question for Brian and Heidi.
Sure.
So we, many times we're approaching you, we're sort of barking, we're trying to get things done. But we can reverse that. What can we do from our side as a advocacy organization to help you and our common goal of trying to improve safety? What is it? Is there any specific actions or activities that we could help contribute to getting things done?
I mean, I would say with my role, it's probably more general. Like I can serve as a technical resource for advocacy groups on anything that VDOT's doing, and I can I'm here to listen to your concerns and relay them to project managers, and keep those concerns in mind as I'm doing plan reviews or project reviews or study reviews. To increase safety, level of comfort, promote general best practices in the industry. So that's pretty much is come to me with their concerns, and then I can relay them to whoever needs to hear them.
I'll also add, I think we have had a very productive working relationship with Bruce Wright and the Fairfax Alliance for Better Bicycling. I think Bruce has really set the bar high as an advocate who has taken a lot of time to, dialogue with us and get to know the industry. So I would say, as advocates, it is your job to challenge us, but also I think it can be really helpful to, view us as partners and, highlight the positive things as well. I think people in general, we hear you. We're here to be responsive to what you say, whatever it is. But it often works well when, the good is pointed out in addition to things that need improvement.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question, Mike. That was how I was hoping to wrap it up. And offer to help. So please, we will definitely be reaching out to you, Brian, and possibly Heidi, I'm sure, in the future. Look forward to working with you, but I would ask that you do the same. If there's ever anything that you think we can help you with, we would be happy to provide input or whatever that might be. You are both, of course, welcome to any of our meetings in the future. You're welcome to just sit in. You're happy to leave your camera off and just lurk in the background. We're not expected to participate, but if you want to listen in, we would certainly welcome your participation going forward, just as a county resident, if you'd like to. If you'd like to join wearing your VDOT hat, we would love that as well, of course. But thank you very much for coming and presenting tonight. And yeah, look forward to getting the slide deck. Thanks again, and yeah, look forward to talking with you more.
Yeah, thank you so much. Nice to meet you all. And yeah, I'll send you that slide deck and lurk in the background.
Okay. If folks want to stick around for 5 or 10 more minutes, I'll just go through a couple of things in the agenda. You're not certainly required to stay, but if you'd like to stay, I'll just share a couple of things, just more on the business side of things for those of you that came for that. Let me share my screen and just point out a couple things in here, just sort of what some of the things that we've been doing, just for general awareness. We are, as a group, actively working on preparing written comments to submit to the county with respect to the site-specific plan amendment project that's happening here on Chainbridge Road in Oakton. It's a large and a little bit contentious redevelopment opportunity that has a great opportunity to provide some real nice active transportation improvements to this area. So the board is working on those comments. We're also kind of involved in an interesting, not really involved, but supporting a really interesting project that the county is pursuing. They're pursuing a grant from Bloomberg Philanthropies, Asphalt Art Initiative, and they're going to take a stretch of Tom Davis Drive, which is in Annandale, and it's one of the rare roads in the county that's owned by the county and not VDOT. So they sort of have the ability to pursue this in and of their own volition. And they're going to try and get this grant from Bloomberg to paint the street and implement a number of safety treatments as well. So we're going to author a letter of support in their pursuit of that grant, and hopefully they'll find out later this year that they've been awarded, and we'll see that project through to fruition. Couple of notes in the agenda about some of the legislative priorities we have and bills that we're supporting. I've already mentioned 2 of these, and earlier in the meeting, Mike mentioned Kathy Tran's bill about quick builds. So those are some of our priorities that we're looking at. I don't know, Mike, if there's anything you want to add to any of those. I know we have some meetings coming up and the session's about to start, but if you have anything you'd like to add, go right ahead.
No, we're just we're working on that on the speed safety cameras. We're talking to a couple of the delegates that are key to trying to get that through, having conversations. If anyone's interested in joining that, one of the people we're talking to is Delaney, Delegate Delaney, who's head of transportation in the House. She's part of Fairfax, so if you want to join, it's a short conversation. It's a short conversation, but constituents always help in those conversations. And we're doing other things. So if you're interested, let us know.
Okay, thanks. And then just a quick note that the board's working on some plans for advocacy work in some underserved communities as part of our DMV grant. And then I just noted, as I usually try to do, there are a couple of opportunities for activism or advocacy this month, a couple of meetings. One is tomorrow night. I'm not intimately familiar with the Franconia Triangle project, but it's another redevelopment project that's going to introduce some new housing, I think in 2 different sites within the Franconia Triangle. And I would assume there's a transportation aspect to that meeting, but if you're just generally interested in those types of projects, there's a public meeting tomorrow night, and there's a Richmond Highway BRT update planned for the middle of the month. I believe they're both virtual meetings. They're obviously, you can check the links, but I think they're both virtual meetings. I don't remember.
I think the BRT is it's in person.
Is that in person? Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Yeah, so that's it. I just wanted to drop those notes since we were mostly here for the VDOT presentation. I didn't have a normal business agenda, but I did want to at least share some of those updates with you.
Well, if I could, Chris, we're looking. So we have about 40 people have signed up as volunteers, and we've been very bad about organizing it. So we are looking for people to help us take a team lead on some things like community outreach, marketing, social media. If anybody wants to do that type of work and help to organize it, we have like 8 people on social media who are volunteered. Community outreach is 4 people. Legislation is 5 people. I'll sort of handle that one. Data analytics is 12. So, but if you're interested, and I think Chris has that. Thank you. Let us know, and we'd welcome your participation, and you're helping us to manage these things because we've got lots of things going on, and it really would be more effective if we get a couple of folks to help in 1 or 2 of those activities and sort of head it up for us.
Okay, thanks, Mike.
Right.
Okay, I think with that, I'll give you the last 20 minutes of your evening back, and just one last thank you to Brian and Heidi for presenting tonight. Like I said, I hope that we'll have a bit of a mix this year of some quote unquote business or meetings and also some more programming like this and some informational meetings. So, but like I'd say at the beginning, I'd welcome your ideas. If you have topics you want to suggest, we'll see if we can make them happen. Otherwise, Happy New Year. And
thank you. Katie, can you stay on if you're still there?
Yeah, never
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
All right.
everybody. Thanks, Chris.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Heidi.
Thanks. Bye.
Katie, I just wanted to